Jeff, as I sit here at the table expressing my feelings, I am overwhelmed with emotions and it is hard for me to break up with you, but I want you to know that it is not about pointing fingers or holding grudges, it is about accepting the changes that I have gone through and being honest with the two of us, that our time together has been filled with joy, and that I will always cherish the beginning of the journey that we are on together as we build our future. We overcame obstacles and enjoyed successes together, but in our daily lives I unknowingly lost touch with my personality. I hope you understand that my decision to take a step back was not a reflection on your worth or our relationship, but simply a realization that I needed to reconnect with myself outside of our relationship. I decided to leave you this letter because I believe honesty is important in any relationship. I can't stand to see the pain in your eyes and hear the pain in your voice when I try to explain how I feel. I hope that in the future we can remember the times we spent together with love and gratitude for the teachings and memories we received. Please take care of yourself, Jeff. You will always hold a special place in my heart. Unfortunately, you will never be able to offer that again. You were absolutely stunning in your younger days, whether it was playing guitar in a band with Buddy or riding a Harley motorbike in a classy leather jacket, your blonde hair blowing in the wind as we danced, and you even painted amazing portraits of me and our children. Now the Harleys are gathering dust in the garage, hidden behind the kids' sports equipment and a minivan. I hurt my legs so badly I can't dance like I used to, but your beautiful hair still fascinates me. But I can't deny that I'm attracted to other men. I can't cheat on you by sneaking around, Jeff. My love for you is too strong for me to do that. I'm sure we'll see each other again, but I don't want to talk about it. But I do believe in justice, so if you want to answer, I promise I'll read it carefully and respectfully. Love, Ellen. I read the note over and over again and couldn't move from where I found it in the kitchen. Prior to this moment, there had been no warning, no sense of dissatisfaction or unfulfilled desire, no sign of a third party in her life. We had shared intimate moments, love and happiness, all of which are the actions of a couple building a life together. She told me that just holding hands was enough. Perhaps she was hinting at it, but I ignored it, assuming she was just used to age, and so I realized for the last time. Even though I don't have a large beer collection, I would have switched to wine if this had happened. Nonetheless, I felt the consequences of my drinking. The next morning I woke up with a splitting headache, lying naked on the floor, and after a shower I went upstairs and threw up, climbing into bed and crying. My grandfather took me aside and said a few words of wisdom to me. He told me that I had 3 days to mourn the dead, and that just as God brought the dead back to life in 3 days, so could I bring my own life back to life. He loved his grandfather's words, and after his wife left him, which he initially thought was the end of their marriage, he cried, drank a lot of wine, and broke furniture and walls with his fists. He believed that beer and wine were a substitute for food because they were made from grains, fruit, and water. In his mind, all his food groups were reduced to 2 bottles. During my summer holiday, she decided to leave while she waited for the end of the school year, and she chose a strategic time to do so. I decided to leave only the heirlooms, the furniture, and pack up the photos and albums for the kids, and the rest of the stuff, like the silly trinkets, I threw in the bin without hesitation. Spanish ceramics and Portuguese copper cats have no sentimental value to me. The pink and coral-colored walls and frilly curtains were gone. I went to Sam and finalized the divorce settlement as everything was undisputed and there was only one lawyer involved in the case. The bike was British racing green with beige leather interior and chrome wire wheels, and after clearing the garage of unnecessary stuff, unpacking the Harley was a piece of cake. 30 minutes after I told my friend about my situation, he and our friend, who has been my closest friend since childhood, arrived on my doorstep. Dear Alan, you were right, goodbye Jeff. I politely declined any news of her life, but in our mutual circle of friends these fragments formed the story of a fast and furious romance. Nonetheless, none of this bothered me, and I wished her happiness with all my heart, for my grandfather had said to wait 3 days before making a decision. But August was full of exciting musical possibilities, and this year was just like any other. Throughout September, my best friend and I were busy attending festival after festival. I almost forgot about my marital problems until Sam called to tell me that our divorce was moving quickly. On Friday, after a month and a half of growth and change, I would officially become a single man. Friday was supposed to be my return to the single life, We were scheduled to perform at a street fair at a local arts festival, and suddenly all the scantily clad, attractive women were within my sight. The crowded street came alive as we took to the stage, and we fired up the crowd and unleashed our energetic blues music. From cover versions to originals and improvisations, we had the crowd dancing. We didn't have the opportunity to record an album then, but now we have enough material for a couple of improvised albums. Maybe our old life situation got in the way, but now we're making up for lost time. I hadn't noticed that Ellen was trying to get backstage. I had casually put my guitar on the back of my motorbike, which was originally designed to make transporting guitars easier, but I hadn't realized how Ellen was hurrying towards me and how her expression changed when she saw Michelle, a blonde in her 30s, sitting on the motorbike behind me for the first time in the 25 years I've owned a motorbike. Years of owning a motorbike. Someone sat on my seat as I drove past Ellen. I wish I could have seen the tears in her eyes. Michelle was truly amazing. I won't try to describe the details of our meeting and the intensity of our physical contact. Suffice it to say that I chased her relentlessly all night, and when I came back to her with a girlish vigor, my pleasure was at a level I hadn't seen in years. Later that evening she politely advised me not to call her again, perhaps fearing the consequences of our passionate rendezvous, and I realized that I couldn't avoid seeing Ellen forever, and I was right, as we met up again at Jimmy's Bar, our regular Friday night haunt. We had a tradition that the offended person would be the lead singer during the playing of American Woman. As I sang the lyrics of the song, pouring out my soul and guitar solo, I realized that I was enjoying American Woman like never before, and the audience was infected and energized by my performance. A week later, my oldest son came to see me and told me the interesting news that turned out Ellen and her young boyfriend had had a fight that night. He was upset that Ellen was avoiding the places where we were playing, and he had heard rumors that my band was playing again and gathering large crowds at our concerts. I voluntarily agreed to the agreement because I didn't want to cause her any harm. The agreement states that if either of us decides to end the marriage to find a better life, he will lose all rights to the family property. Apparently Ellen was aware of this agreement, which may have been the reason she filed for a peaceful divorce after splitting up with her younger partner. Ellen poured her heart out to her children on the phone the next night in tears. But my children were upset by my indifference. They still thought I didn't care about them and thought I should let their mother back into our home for a while to help her regain her health. I didn't agree because I didn't want to deal with the mood swings associated with menopause that I'd already experienced during my marriage. On top of having to deal with her, the thought of her crawling humiliatingly in front of me, perhaps feeling guilty for leaving it all behind, was not something I wanted to deal with on a daily basis. As time went on, the children's requests for help became more and more reasonable, and eventually I allowed them access to the storage unit I rented to store our furniture and valuables until Ellen could find her own little flat. With the start of the new school year and the group's busy schedule, I found that I rarely saw Ellen, and even though we both taught in the same district, we worked in different school buildings, which resulted in us rarely seeing each other. Maybe it was because I often rode a Harley or drove a sports car, maybe it was because of my busy schedule, or maybe it was because of my newfound bachelorhood. The rumors didn't bother me very much. The band was doing well, my epic barbecue parties were a big hit, I was always in the company of females, and I was very happy and didn't miss my marriage at all. Thanksgiving came earlier than usual this year, which allowed us to get our calendars right as we prepared for our trip. My son surprised me by calling me the night before and inviting me to join him for Thanksgiving dinner at Ellen's restaurant. He said all three of his kids would be in the city and he hoped they would remember this day in particular. I agreed to the Christmas party on the condition that Ellen knew she couldn't bring a couple and I would focus on the kids. Later, my son told me that Ellen had a date, but despite this, she felt lonely. Revelation, I had not become more interested in the romantic life, and my main priority was to have a quiet family gathering to avoid the awkwardness that a new romantic relationship might bring. I invited them to stay at my house for as long as they wished, and I wanted all the children to be together, not in a hotel. I say Ellen should be part of the family too and invite her to stay as well. I told my son, but she would have to sleep in the guest room because I didn't think she should stay in the original room. My daughter and her fiancé had flown in from Australia, my son and his girlfriend had flown in from Boston with my youngest daughter who was in college there, and Ellen arrived 10 minutes before them. I noticed her sitting in the car, nervously watching everyone gather in the courtyard to hug and kiss. When the 6 of them finally entered the house through the front door, they were greeted with a comfortable and welcoming atmosphere. It dawned on me that neither my daughter nor my ex-wife had been in the house since I had renovated it, so their return came as a surprise. I had decorated the house with Christmas decorations as usual, and the space was filled with candles and nutcrackers, which were now placed on my new furniture. The dining room table was set with delicate china that Ellen's grandmother had given her years ago on her wedding day. It was clear that I had made our house my own, and it was now completely ready to welcome my family for Christmas. Even though the kids have grown into adults, they are still my flesh and blood, and they bring me a sense of pleasure when they explore the house. I kept the kids' desks and dressers, but added new headboards. The spacious guest room has been converted into a studio with a drawing table by the window for painting and plenty of room for instruments, amplifiers, and recording equipment. The living room was neatly furnished with a new fireplace adorned with fresh Christmas stockings, one for each of us, including Ellen. The sight of a Christmas stocking immediately evoked nostalgic memories, and the children rushed to the stockings with playful smiles, as if turning back the clock and enthusiastically embracing the festive season. Under the Christmas tree, we always carefully filled the stockings with simple gifts and trinkets before going on to pick out the big presents. This was always our custom. Laughter filled the A's house. Biscuits and chocolates were enjoyed by all. Silly stockings were worn, and the magic of Christmas morning enveloped us. "Dad, your stocking is empty," they apologized. "We didn't know, so we hadn't brought anything to fill it." I took the stocking from the fireplace, grabbed the stocking from the fireplace, looked inside. There was nothing left. "Honey, you filled it up. You were all here to share memories, laughter, and joy, and now you've filled it up again with the spirit of Christmas." We exchanged hugs and kisses, exchanged Christmas greetings. Ellen stayed in our arms a little longer than expected, and it fostered a feeling of warmth and togetherness in our family. After exchanging gifts and enjoying a festive feast, we gathered for a traditional Christmas jam session, guitars in hand, and as the night wore on, we eventually returned to our respective bedrooms full of contentment and a festive mood. "I'm so glad I got to spend Christmas with you and the kids," she said. Reflecting on her past decisions, she added, "I know it's my own fault, but of all the things I've given up, it's the family time I'll miss most of all." Alan nodded in understanding, "But I also miss the good times we had together. Do you remember the times when it was just the 2 of us?" "That's exactly what you do. We may have different lives now, but they are still fulfilling." I comforted her as tears streamed down her face and she finally broke down. I held her close, feeling the pain of our shared history and loss. I shared with her the pain I felt when she left and said that I couldn't be with someone who wasn't fully invested in our relationship. It took me a while to heal after our marriage broke down, but I was ready for a new life. I made her bed in the studio, gave her one of my t-shirts and a bathrobe, and after making sure the house was secure, I went back upstairs and heard her crying, and I doubted she'd be able to fall asleep, but nevertheless I managed to do so without incident. There was an unmistakable "I love you so much" look in Ellen's eyes and one of those wonderful smiles that I remember so well, and I even responded to a couple of silent requests for hugs and kisses. I buttered pancakes, she poured just the right amount of maple syrup, we finished each other's sentences effortlessly, and despite being so close, we slept in separate rooms when the kids were out on trips, leaving my daughter and the boys to explore Boston and then go skiing in Vermont. I made mistakes and acted stupidly and ugly, and I know I can never fully make up for what I did, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to apologize and I hope we can at least be friends again. You were more than just a husband to me, you were my best friend, my dear friend, my companion, and I really miss every part of you. Ellen rambles on about her jaded journey, admitting that she unknowingly pushed me away, creating an impassive emptiness from which we both suffered, and she details how excited she was to meet a charming young man and how she was tempted to begin a secret relationship. Her story alternated between elation at the betrayal and disappointment that I hadn't fought for her, and I looked at her coldly and let her go. She admitted that she envied my life after I quickly reverted to my pre-relationship lifestyle, especially when she saw another woman on the back of my Harley. Her envy turned to anger when she saw me with different women, each of whom, in her opinion, was better than what she had. After the divorce, she hit rock bottom when she realized that her young lovers had a habit of dating married women until they became lonely and then dumping them. Although there were plenty of men willing to buy her drinks, dance with her, or spend the night with her, she had no long-term options. While there were plenty of men willing to buy her a drink, dance with her, or spend the night with her, there were no long-term options. I listened patiently to her grievances until she said everything she wanted to say, then I poured us both another drink and handed her mine with an encouraging smile. Like I said, you got what you wanted and I love you enough to let you go. I'm sorry I didn't capture her reaction at that moment. It's obvious she didn't expect my feelings for her to be the reason. I forgive you. I know I can't control or limit you, and if I try to forbid you from doing something, you'll just sneak up on me. And even though your note seemed harsh at first, in retrospect it helped simplify the situation. But if you're willing to trust my advice, then that's your choice. Calling each other partners in crime might be too hurtful right now, so let's just call ourselves friends. We slept in separate rooms because we had a lot of catching up to do. The next day, she was back at her house, getting ready for a New Year's Eve trip to Boston with the kids. We met again at a professional development conference in April, and we sat at the same table at lunch, and in the course of a pleasant conversation we discussed our daughter's upcoming wedding in Australia, and it seemed to me that we were back to being friends again. At the end of the lunch she thanked me for the hospitality I had extended to her on Christmas Day, and said that she was glad that we could continue to be friends, and before saying goodbye, she asked me to do her a favor. Her face was beaming with joy and nostalgia. The back of my motorbike was filled with memories of her younger days, days that always ended in moments of passion. She clung to me for hours as we drove, her hands roaming over my chest, and you can imagine the rest. No need to go into it. I wasn't sure I could resist her playful charms. It turned out I couldn't. I felt her exploring me with her hands as we drove to the waterfalls, and after climbing to the top of the mountain we walked through the forest and stopped in a charming little town to wander the streets and browse the antique shops, and although I don't usually like it, it was a pleasure to talk to a woman I've always found to be beautiful in every way. Our lunch was delicious, and by dinner time we were back down south, stopping at a charming marina for a seafood dinner by candlelight. The delicious food and the gentle sound of the waves lapping against the dock made me realize that a special evening awaited us. I took her to our house and we shared a bed for the first time. Yes, we made love. We both seemed to be playing the role of lovers. The rest of the week we continued our dinner and filmed dates, sharing intimate moments. My daughter's wedding was fast approaching and we carefully considered every detail. I was happy and did not hesitate to cover all the costs, in addition to the fact that before the divorce our band was making a lot of money playing at music festivals. I had a reliable, well-paid job and no one else to support, so I was fairly well off financially and had savings in the bank. On the day of our departure, Alan showed up early and I was still packing my breakfast when I heard a car pull up to the door and the driver quickly took us to JFK, leaving our bags at the curb, and we walked to the terminal together. The check-in area was sparsely populated, so we were able to queue together for our flight to Sydney. After Alan walked forward a bit, the attendant asked me why I didn't choose the shorter queue reserved for first-class passengers, even though I had purchased a first-class ticket for the long-haul flight. When I checked in at the counter, the attendant didn't ask Ellen about her economy ticket, but offered to transfer her to first class so we could sit together. When we boarded the plane, I asked her to wait with me, and at first she was annoyed, worried that her seat had been given to a standing passenger, and began to make a fuss. When she sat next to me in first grade, her mood changed so dramatically that at one point I wanted to join the Mile High Club. I can't tell you how proud I was when I escorted her down the aisle and witnessed her wedding. During the wedding reception, I had the honor of accompanying Ellen and enjoying the traditional dances. We honored our beloved daughter with music. After the ceremony, Ellen and the boys gathered in the living room of the hotel, where one of the boys opened the door and asked, "What happened between you two? Do you mind?" "Yes, Mom, it just seems to me that something more has happened," one of the sons said. "You seem to be getting closer again, maybe you're even thinking of getting back together." Ellen sighed. "A while ago I got carried away and made a stupid mistake. I admit I was stupid, very stupid. I admit I was stupid, very stupid. I take responsibility for that. I'm ready to face the consequences. Your father, and I have your father and I have talked about this, and his words are true, and we've been teaching you. And I've made the choice to end the relationship, and I'm ready to face the consequences." "I don't have anything to add," sitting there with a smile on my face, enjoying a nice local Australian beer. Come on, Mom and Dad have answered the questions. Can you share your thoughts with us? I think your question is mostly about my personal life, which I consider to be private. Didn't I teach you not to share intimate details? Why would I do that now? Can you confirm that there is a loving relationship between you and your mother? Son, given our shared past, our relationship will always be more than just a friendship. She is the love of my life, the mother of my children, my close one. She is my confidant. I had just changed into my pajamas when there was a knock on the door. It was Ellen. I invited her in and then we both climbed into bed. She thanked me for the upgrade and started to thank me for the wonderful week she had had. She thanked us for working together on our daughter's wedding, and what I said to the kids in the living room, her gratitude overwhelmed me and I could barely keep up with her sincere words. I want you to know that I'll always be there for you when you need me, she said softly. Somewhere in my adult life I forgot why I fell in love with you. Somewhere in the monotony of my daily life I forgot how much you meant to me. Leaving you was a grave mistake. I lost the most precious thing I've ever possessed. I'd like to go back in time, to change everything. Whatever you need, just let me know. Do you need a tennis partner? I'm here. Do you need a traveling companion, band accompanist or vocalist? Trust me. Do you need a lover? I'm your woman. It's okay to make love. I'll be there. I'll never ask or expect exclusivity from you. I know I've given up. But know that if you need something, the answer will always be yes. If you decide to give yourself to someone else, I will be there to remind her how lucky she is to have you and to make sure you are happy. Thank you for your kind words, Ellen. I'm so glad we reunited and spent time together. I've always lived in a space where their preferences dictated everything, but now I'm starting to like my house where I can choose the colors and the level of clutter. I've found that openness and intimacy are good for me, and I'm not going to change that anytime soon. Do you remember the note I wrote you in reply to your letter? You took my advice, expressed your gratitude, and said goodbye, but you didn't sign it. You were right when you said we were stagnant and needed to change. The thanks and goodbyes were sincere, and to add love to the mix would have been forced and inappropriate. Is there anything else you'd like to say? No, I've shown you everything you wanted to see. Yes, you should have shown me that you cared. You've shown me that you still find me attractive and desirable. You've shown me your love for me and your devotion to our family. You've stood by me. Your love for me goes beyond that of a normal lover. When it comes to our children, you've gone out of your way to have dinners with me, to arrange appointments with me. You've treated me with so much respect and so value our relationship that you are extremely generous with me, for example sending me first class and paying for expenses without hesitation. I want you to know that I recognize and respect this, and I would never pressure you on this issue. I want you to know that if you decide to ask this question, my answer will be yes, and I will pray every day for the opportunity to say it. She kissed me goodnight. Children, financial stability. As much as I care for Ellen, the idea of settling down with her doesn't seem appealing to me at the moment. When I asked her if she really didn't want to hear from me again, she smiled, and after confirming that she wouldn't mind meeting up, she extended an invitation to me, and when I got on my Harley and went to meet her, I knew that someday I would ask Ellen to marry me again, but that day wasn't today. Story number 2. I'm sure that a lot of stories usually start at the beginning, but in this case I think it would have been more productive to start at the end. 2 tables away from my 2 tables away. The girls were sitting gossiping about their bosses, and in front of me 3 girls were trying to fill up on breakfast. The waitress had just filled my glass with yellow liquid when suddenly a shadow loomed over me. Well, Max, I said with a mocking tone, I've been waiting for you to come. Max is Maxwell K., my ex-father-in-law. Hi Chris, can we have a chat? I've known this man for over 3 years now, and for the first time I feel he appreciates me. Not only for my confidence in myself, but for being in control, which is what I needed to hear and see. Have a seat, Max. You're disturbing someone else. He took a seat across from me. The girls looked at us in surprise as Max sat down next to me. He owns the largest warehouse in the area and the only shipping company for miles around. When the local economy collapsed 15 years ago, Max managed to stay afloat, providing jobs and security for many of the local residents. At 6 feet 6 inches he still commands respect and looks like a man who has earned his place in an important role. Chris, I know you're not feeling well right now, but can you and Kylie just forget about this little thing? My heart pounds at the word little thing, but I grit my teeth and keep quiet. I reminded myself that my goal wasn't to get into a physical altercation, but to win from it, and gradually I calmed down, noticing that everyone around me was doing their best to pretend they didn't need me, but I knew they couldn't wait to find out more details, so why not spill the beans to them? I picked up the biscuit and took a bite. From the moment we met I asked her for her phone number and she started bragging about all the men who were interested in her. She was testing me to see if I'd fight for her, which I stupidly did. I gave her the attention she craved. I took another bite of the biscuit and continued. Then she took me home to meet her father and I said that she was flirting with other men right in front of me, and Chris Marks said sternly, "That was disrespectful, I don't think." She realized what she was doing. I said, "But it doesn't matter now, it's over between us. I'm going to move on." Max sighed heavily. "I'm sorry, Chris. I should have realized the signs earlier. I should have stopped this. It's not your fault, Max. I said you were just trying to protect your daughter." Max nodded. "Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your understanding. I hope you can forgive Kylie for what she did." "I have, Max," I said. "But that doesn't mean I have to forget. Trust takes time to rebuild and I'm not sure I can trust her again." We were silent for a while and then Max stood up. "I should go. Take care, Chris." "You too," Max said. "Say hi to Kylie for me." "I will." Max nodded and turned to go. "Chris, you've got her overpowered," I interrupted, spreading applesauce on my toast. "She was testing me to see if I'd fight for her, and I stupidly did. I gave her the attention she craved." "You don't like my political beliefs, you despise my profession, criticize my style and my qualities. At first I thought you were pretending, but then I realized that you just don't approve of me. I know my faults, but I'm willing to put up with them. I've tried to prove to you that I'm a good person, but it's no use. Instead of arguing with you, I'd rather say nothing and do nothing and just accept what you're telling me, that there's a conflict between us. And I don't mind that. I just want us to continue to be." "Have you thought about what she wants? Have you thought about what she's trying to do?" I took a big sip of my drink and took the opportunity to watch Max carefully as she started to spend time with her ex-boyfriends, claiming they were just friends. I held up my hand so Max wouldn't be able to defend her right away. "I know she's never cheated on anyone in the past, and I can assure you that after I blamed Thomas for touching her inappropriately in the bar and everyone insisted that nothing had happened, she was just sizing me up to find out if I was jealous of her past love, which eventually led to her being jealous of her past love, which led to her being jealous of her past love, which led to her being jealous of her past love, which led to her being jealous of her past love, jealous of her past love, which eventually led to a breakup. But those 3 months were the best of my life." I finished my biscuits and wiped my hands, and Max was silent, and I don't know if he realized that she wasn't as innocent as he thought she was, or if he'd known about it the whole time and my stance had finally worked, or in any case, his silence had had an impact. But it was at that moment that everything took a strange turn. I was suddenly surrounded by a group of attractive women wherever I went to work, the gym, to shop, and whilst it was commonplace for beautiful women to approach me, it crossed the line when they all started trying to seduce me, inviting me to dinner and openly expressing an interest in me. One day she locked us in the pantry and unbuttoned her dress. She was naked and I could hardly resist looking at her. I was shocked because I saw the girls from the wedding. These were her friends, relatives, and old acquaintances. But on the day of the wedding I went through another ordeal. When you handed me the prenuptial agreement, if I was unfaithful to Kylie, I would get nothing. Interestingly enough, there was no mention in the agreement of what would happen if she was unfaithful to me, and I asked if I could walk away from a situation like this, and you asked your lawyer to clarify that if Kylie changed I would receive a 122. Do you know what happened last Saturday? First of all, I had to work 8 hours because someone decided to go to an amusement park instead of coming to work. It made my day terrible, but that was just the beginning. I finally got home, Max. I couldn't park in front of the door. I had to park on the street because someone was taking my spot. I thought about it for a long time, yes, but not long enough to be sensible. I thought it was a neighbor who had parked the car. Kelly hadn't asked them to move it yet, and when I walked into the room I saw Kelly in the same bed with another man in the same bed, in her bed, in my bed. I was in complete shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This guy was lying. He was happily with my wife and she was just grinning as if nothing terrible had happened, and I was seething with anger. Then she took another step forward. "Honey, can you get us a drink?" And that snapped me out of my shock. She smiled sweetly and asked me to get something from my beer supply. I snarled, "If you're thirsty, get your damn drink, you filthy woman." You'll get what you want, but not from me. You'll get everything you want in this big house, but not from me either. Don't come near me, idiot, or you'll both have to eat through straws for the rest of your lives, I said when I saw him get out of bed. I've never seen anyone bend over and die the way he did. You scumbag, man, you can have the fucking house. I'm going, I shouted. Her brother Mike, what kind of dysfunctional family are you? Mike was so eager to help his sister. Calm down, Chris, it's not like you. What are you doing here? It's okay, I'm going to go now. Step aside. When I tried to walk past him, but I hit him in the neck. Believe me, a punch to the throat would have made anyone go down. Then I went back to my room and grabbed my hiking backpack and headed for the door. By the way, Chris, according to the doctor, Mike's condition has been improving after your body blow. It got better. Max listened to me for a long time, which was nice. But who cares? Kelly ran out as I was leaving. Her robe fell off and she was screaming, but I ignored her and left. I had no place to stay, but luckily my old house was vacant after a recent renovation and I hadn't yet found a tenant willing to rent the house. I found the perfect place to stay for the night on a Sunday. I quickly packed my clothes and essentials and carried the cot up to the truck. It was too uncomfortable to sleep on the floor. After taking a sip of water, I heard laughter not far from me. As I walked to the truck, your daughter came to pick me up. I quickly got into the car and drove off without speaking to her. As she drove up to her house, I heard Kelly run out of the car angrily shouting my name. She may have gotten there before I did and taken the shortcut, but I didn't speak to her. She knocked on the door desperately, trying to explain to me, but I had made up my mind that she had betrayed me and found me in her bed with another man. I had nothing to say and I decided not to confront her. When she knocked on the door, I called the police and slipped out the back door and put on my headphones whilst reading a magazine. As soon as I saw the headlights of the police car, I opened the door for them. As soon as I saw the headlights of the police car, they ordered her out of the house and escorted her out, even though if it had been someone else who had done the same thing they would have ended up in jail. But she's your daughter, so they acted differently. And Max awkwardly conveyed his gratitude to Hardy when he placed a cup of coffee in front of him, which was an unusual circumstance. He was usually in charge and always made the decisions, but now I was his leader, holding the rainwater tightly in my hands. On Monday, I took $122,000 out of our bank account and closed all of our credit cards, even though I had never actually used them. I also took the initiative to set up an interview with SNK, who had been trying to convince me to expand the company for a long time, but I declined because Kelly thought it was too risky. I explained that while he was a great boss, I didn't go to college to be a clerk. I'm sorry I had to put you in a difficult situation, but I just found out that my wife is cheating on me, and I have to leave. Can you talk to Kelly? I went to see Mrs. Haynes and I heard that you needed help with your divorce. I was hoping that Kelly wouldn't get the paperwork at work on Tuesday, and it turns out that they tried to convince me all day yesterday and today to talk to her after the paperwork was turned in, but I decided to just leave. Can you explain that little episode? Was she having fun in bed with someone else? Max, why would she betray me? I only had the first option, leave them in her bed. She'd love it. The desire for sex could be fulfilled. The second option was to join them. The thrill of the chase could make her lust after you. I thought she might get back at me for something I didn't do. I didn't cheat on her. Maybe she found out about the bachelorette party and wanted to get back at me for the night I spent consoling Stacy and Mike's friends. But why did she betray me, and how is she going to make it right? She knew my love for her was genuine, and if all I needed was money, I wouldn't care if she was seeing someone else. But I'm not like that. I've never played that game, Max. I've put up with your family and all the difficulties associated with it. For years I've put up with your family and all the difficulties associated with it. But what have I got in return? Trust, love, respect, nothing. I come home to find her trying to manipulate me again. Max, it's time to wake up. Is there anything left that can save our marriage? I know that Kelly really does love you. She's practically begging for it. Does she love me, Max? I'm really exhausted. The door to the Waffle House is open and I can't take it anymore. She needs a man who keeps proving that I can't do this anymore. She's pushing me to the limit. I love her, Max, but she's ruined everything. I hope you're happy now, I said and stood up. Max didn't move when I heard the last words. I saw Kelly standing at the counter. She must have been the last one to come, and our eyes met and I could see the tears in her eyes. Her chin trembled, but I didn't feel anything. I left a $20 bill on the table and I was so tired I couldn't stand to see it. I left a $20 note on the table, put on my coat and walked out.